And I am live. I am live. Well, hello everybody. So look, I am trying a new technology. I'm actually here in my studio, and I have a studio guest today, y'all, who is absolutely amazing. I can't wait for you guys to meet her. She walked into my studio with books, y'all. She got stuff. So I'm really, really excited for you guys to meet her. She's in the green room right now. And if you guys have any technical issues during this, as a matter of fact, if you can help me, if you can hear me, just say I got you, sis, or I hear you, or something, so I know that you all are with me today. So this is the second of a three-part podcast series. And again, if you're joining and you're watching via replay, thank you so much for watching. Please like and share. Appreciate it. Appreciate you for supporting this platform and helping us to have conversations, right? So, oh yes, thank you. I'm glad you can hear me. Yeah. So these conversations that we're having are really just about for Juneteenth. These conversations for this month are about educating all of our community, right? Whether you are a descendant of an enslaved African or you just want to learn more. Because the one thing that I'm finding out as I'm going through this journey with people like the person that I have in the green room is that it's about learning. It's about learning. It's about learning our history. It's about embracing our history. It's about carrying something forward, and really making sure that we leave this country, this planet, better than what we received it. I personally believe that's what God would want us to do. Yes. Okay, so let's talk about the series. So the first episode, if you have not watched it yet, it was on Monday at 7 p.m. And it's also on YouTube. So I stream to 5 platforms simultaneously. So it stays on YouTube longer than it will stay on Facebook. But I had his name was I believe he's a Deacon Mr. Robert Crawford, and he is from the Emancipation Proclamation Association LLC. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because I asked him, I said, do I have to say all that? He said, yes, ma'am. You have to say all that. So I'm going to say it again. The Emancipation Proclamation Association LLC out of Charleston. And he joined me on Monday and we talked about the Emancipation Proclamation and what they do. They've been doing it for 161 years, y'all. Mm-hmm. Check that out. Mm-hmm. So, and then also we had a whole conversation. I'm not going to regurgitate it. You can go over and look at it. Episode 2, which is where we are today. This episode is dedicated to Poo Too Gooshular. And we're going to learn a whole lot more about Poo Too Gooshular. I will tell you that he was a citizen in Mullins. So citizen is with air quotes because, we became citizens a little bit later. But anyway, we'll get to all of that. So Poo Too Gooshular. And then my third and final episode for the Juneteenth series is going to be on Mrs. Phyllis Jordan. And Mrs. Phyllis Jordan, she was an enslaved African. She was in the house. She was working for a family. She was a nurse, a cook. She was so many things. We're going to learn a lot more about Mrs. Phyllis. And that's going to be next Monday at 7 o'clock, where I'll have another guest in studio. Mm-hmm. All right. So without further ado, I am going to bring on my special guest of the day, of the evening, Ms. Marverne Page. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I am so excited. I've been waiting for this conversation, last year. Well, can you tell the people, you're a family historian. Can you tell the people about yourself, what you do?
Well, I've been researching my Reaves Family History since 1987, and it's been a wonderful long journey. But in that process, I found out that I was the great granddaughter of Poo Too Gooshular. My parents were Willie and Willie Vereen. My mom was Velma Reaves Vereen, and
great. So three greats.
Three greats.
Okay.
So really proud of that.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and dig in. And hey, look, if you have any questions, just go ahead and hop on, right?
Mhm.
And so this is a Mullins focus, right? So let's talk about the Reaves family because that's kind of I just went ahead and jumped to Reaves, but we need to get there yet. Okay, let's talk about Poo Too Gooshular,
Okay.
the man, the
Mhm.
myth, the legend.
Yeah.
So how did he get here? How did Poo Too Gooshular get to Mullins, South Carolina?
Well, that's an interesting story because when I first heard of his name, um, that was a major shocker.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, my aunt Gwen was the one who first exposed that name to me. And as I kept researching, it led me to a cousin, James Norwood Reeves. They had been celebrating their Hutu since 1954. They would meet every Thanksgiving and celebrate him. Um,
But
with
let's talk about how he got here
how
real
we got
quick.
here.
So I'm talking to a historian, y'all.
It's got
And
a lot to say.
she's going to connect all these dots, right?
Yeah.
So it's my understanding that Putu is a son of a chieftain.
Yes, he is.
Can you tell that
He's-
story?
Yeah. As the story was passed on to me by cousin James Norwood Reeves, he was the son of a chieftain. He was a prince. He was of the royal bloodline, and what happened was that they said that the chief, his father, had sent him to the shore to get a burial shroud from the market that was there. But
Oh,
on his way going there, other slave runners captured him and sold him to the ship's captain for a lot of money, um, because he was a strong, fine, strapping man. And so when he arrived, we were told that he wasn't put in the fields to work because they wanted to make him a breeder. But for the longest time, I thought that he was first on Charles Reeves' plantation because his name was in his estate inventory. But a cousin of mine, who's a researcher as well, Delana Jones in the Daniel Reeves line, she discovered that he was originally on the Robert Hodges Jr. plantation.
okay. So let's back that
Mhm,
up.
mhm.
So Putu going about his happy way, running errands. He's a prince,
Mhm.
and he gets captured,
Yeah.
kidnapped.
Mhm.
Right? It was no fun journey,
Right.
and he ends up somehow or another in Mullins, and those names that you were talking about were different plantation owners.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the significance of that. And y'all, if you listening, those of you that are listening, have you heard of any Poo Too Goshulars? No, because what happened was the first thing you would get was named, right? So when you arrived at a plantation, and the interesting thing, and we have some documentations that show this, is that his bloodline, they all had colonized names, but he didn't. He kept his name, Poo Too Goshullar, to the day he died. And you have evidence and proof of that, right?
Yes.
So what's your evidence that Poo Too Goshullar was Poo Too Goshullar, and he was Poo Too Goshullar all the way really to the day he died?
Okay. Like I said, in the first document that he showed up in
What was that?
was in Robert Hodges Jr. Estate inventory, and it was spelled Paatoo. And then the next document that I saw was Charles Reeves' estate inventory, and it was spelled Poo-Too, and that's where I saw his name for the very first time. And then,
Okay, so can you see on the screen with me? I have the Robert Hodges 1816 estate inventory.
yes,
And
his
so,
value was $600 if you see that, and it's spelled Pattoo.
oh, I do. I see it in the
Mhm.
margins there.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And so you have the estate inventory in 1816, and then you have census records, right?
In the census records, he wasn't in the census records. His son was in the census records, Moses, Daniel, and they were all listed in Charles Reaves' estate inventory when he died in 1861. And that's, like I said, that's where I first saw him, down in the right-hand corner, POO-TOO. And then the last document that we saw him in was when he was in the household of Elizabeth Williamson McMillan, and he would have been in his like 84 or 85 at that time. But he was there because he was they stated that he was a former slave.
Oh, we're going to come back to that.
We're going to come back to that. But that's the last time his name showed up in that document.
Gotcha, because that's an interesting story all in his own.
Yeah, it is.
So looking at, so he gets here, he doesn't change his name. He is a breeder, so he has these 3 kids that we know of.
That we can trace back.
Because, enslaved Africans babies were sold. You didn't even have to be a baby. Yeah. They could sell you at any point, right?
Yeah.
So he was here and I imagine that it took a lot because people were beat for a whole lot less. I mean, Poo Too not only kept his name, but he made everybody call him by his name. Yeah. I could see this prince, this son of a chieftain, like, hey, no, I'm not going to be so-and-so Reaves. I'm not going to be Bobby Charles, Dick Tom Reaves. I'm Poo Too. Yeah. That's a lot.
It is.
And he had to break somebody down, and they was like, okay, whatever. Yeah. You're Poo Too.
I believe that when he stepped off the boat, that his royal countenance, his possibly six-pack, demanded a certain level. There was something about him that they saw that commanded that he remain royal. And they said, we're not putting him in the fields to work. He's too fine of a specimen to work him up, break him down that way. And so they made him be a breeder.
Right. So let's unpack that a little bit too, right? So Poo Too, you talked about the Reaves family. So, but you mentioned the Hodges family too, because his wife's last name was Reaves and his children's last name was Reaves. Well, how did the Hodges come into the picture?
Elizabeth Avery Hodges Reaves was married to Poo Too's grandson, Lot. And I believe she knew Poo Too because her husband and she were like, he was the grandson of Poo Too. So she knew his story and passed it on to cousin Norwood. I believe when I calculated his age, he would have been 36 in 1816 when Robert Hodges Jr. died. So that told me that he had to have had babies that last names would have been Hodges. But I also found out that about 5 of those listed on Robert Hodges Jr. estate inventory shifted over and went to Charles Reaves. And when he died in 1861. And the reason those 5 went to Charles Reaves is because Charles Reaves was married to Robert Hodges Jr. daughter.
Okay, so they was just sharing inventory.
Yeah, they were sharing inventory.
I got it. And it's the one, as you dig more and more into this, it feels kind of insensitive to talk about people as inventory or as breeders, right? Because there's cows in the field right now, and that's their job, but that's how it was. That's how it was here in Mullins at the time during enslavement, during a chattel enslavement in America. So Poo Too, here's an interesting thing, and I'm going to drop that because knowing that he didn't change his name, there's 2 facts about the time that blow my mind. One is I like to go to Savannah and I take their tours, their Black History tours, and the guy there tells me that the average age of a slave was 16.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. They're not one, and somebody old, they ain't gonna make the journey.
Right.
They ain't gonna live through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they needed people here to work. That's why they stole them, right? So if we go back and say, okay, so the average age was 16, and we can't really pinpoint his age when he got here, but we know he lived a long life.
Yeah, he did.
The average age of death, enslaved Africans lived about to be in their 30s. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that he walked this land in Mullins, which it wasn't Mullins at the time, eventually became Mullins, as, like you said, the prince. So that being said, for the families that are here today, other than the Reaves, because I think last year, I went to like 3 different family reunions and talked about Poo Too. Wow. And those family reunions had different last names. I know I went to the Ford's family reunion.
Yeah.
I went to, I think, yours. And then there was another one, I'm forgetting the name. It was, but they were all part of his lineage. Can you explain how is that and what are these different last names?
Oh, wow. Well, and I think you're referring to Cynthia Ford's family reunion.
Yes.
I can speak to that one.
Okay.
Let me go back. Daniel and William. Okay, we always celebrated Andrew Reaves.
Andrew.
There was Andrew, Daniel, and William.
Okay.
Cynthia is in the William line. Okay.
Got you.
And I'm in the Andrew line. But their father was Moses Reaves, and Moses' father was Poo Too. So I can explain Cynthia's because she's close right in there with us. Now, the other one, I don't know the last name of who you might have been talking about, but because Cynthia and I we're descendants of Moses Reaves, who was one of Poo Too's, was the other son that Poo Too had. He had Celia, Moses, and Daniel. And I'm in the Moses line, and so is Cynthia.
What's interesting is that, people say that, hey, I'm a descendant of a king or a prince or royalty. But in Mullins, there's a lot of Reaves hordes around here. And you guys really, truly are descendants of royalty.
Yeah.
That's a badge that your children and your children's children need to know. So I thank you personally so much for making sure you, as well as Kathy Vaughn, that you guys are keeping this history present for our community. Matter of fact, I'm gonna try to get Ms. Vaughn to do something for me on Nazarene. That's a whole.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
So I put it out there. If you watch it, Kathy,
she would be great.
Yes, great. Yes. Okay. So back to Poo Too. So there's this mystery of his age and the mystery of his name. He lived a long life, so we know that he was treated special.
Yeah.
Especially as an African man, that just would not have been the case, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that for me, the people that I encounter, vast majority of them are part of this lineage that are in Mullins and have family in Mullins. It just gives me a sense of pride, a sense of self, right? I'm a Jersey girl. My roots go back to Kingstree.
Okay.
My mom's family, the Kingstree. But man, it just feels good when you know that you are around greatness. So when you see some of the things that his descendants have done.
Yeah. We got some famous ones right here today.
Please tell.
Well, if we start with, I want to start with the Daniel line. Okay, so there was Celia, Moses, Daniel. In the Daniel line, you have Councilwoman Terry Davis.
Yes, Terry
that works
Davis.
With you.
Yes.
There is a Doris and Belinda. They're sisters, but I think Doris has a salon here in Mullins. Who else in the Dr. William Rembert?
Yes.
She's in the Daniel line.
Yes.
And if I shift over to Celia, that's a whole nother can of worms because she had a son. Celia and her husband Zed Reaves had a son, and when he was ordained by Gateway Baptist Church in 1866. By the time May 30th of 1867 came, he was leading 116 various family members from around here, from the first Mullins depot to the Charleston Harbor, and they left on a ship called the Golconda for Grand Bassa County, Liberia.
Let's go there, sis.
Oh yeah.
Tell the people. Yes, tell the people what did that mean? What was Liberia at the time?
Well, it was a colony that was established. The American Colonization Society, which was established in 1816, it was set up so for freed slaves who wanted to go back to Africa, that was their ticket to go. And
think about it. So let's just park that there for the folks that are listening. When African enslavement in America started is debatable, but we're going to go with 1619. Okay. We're going to go with 1619 for the start of African slavery in America. So here we are, 1865, and you're talking about going back to Africa. So this was a way, my understanding, that folks had someplace to go, because 200 years have passed. 1816, 1716, 1619, 1719, 1819. Yeah.
And he was
300 years.
And he was leaving May 30th of 1867.
Wow, 1867. Yeah. So that would have been 4 years after the end of slavery. Yeah. So 300 years since the first generation got here. So we really didn't have a place to go back to. You can't, I know that I read John Meacham has a book about Abraham Lincoln. And he says in his book that Abraham Lincoln wanted us, one of the options, because we're going to end slavery because it's impacting us financially. Slavery ending, from what I've been reading, was not something that there were some abolitionists, but the reason why we won is because it impacted people's pockets. It impacted the cotton trade. Right. It impacted insurance. It impacted, it was a money thing. So here we got, 1863, 64, 65, 66, 67. Where are you going to go? So Abraham Lincoln was like, one of the things on the table was like, let's send them back to Africa. And somebody I admire greatly is Frederick Douglass. I probably don't have a call on this subject without talking about him. I do admire him greatly. And he said, no.
I'm not going.
He said, we built this country. Yeah. No, we're going to be right here. Give us land. We'll figure it out. Right? We did this land. We built this. We did that. Give us land and we'll figure it out. So Liberia, but it was violent though. After slavery ended, it was violent still for Africans here. So do you have any kind of insight into how they were promoting Liberia? And then did anybody have any connections back with folks that may have already been in Liberia?
All I can tell you is that Cornelius B. Reaves, and there was a Calvin Juror back in the day. There were numerous letters. I mentioned Delana Jones. She has loads of and copies of these letters that they were communicating back and forth with a representative that was connected to the American Colonization Society. And through that, all those letters is how they were able to make the final arrangements and arrange for them to go. And that's about all that I have, surrounding that. There was a Delana also found the manifesto that listed all of the 116 family members that went over there. But at the very top was Cornelius B. Reaves, minister, and he was the leader that led them from here, from the depot, the first depot in Mullins, to the harbor to get on that ship, the
Now,
Golconda.
have you read any of the letters?
Some of them, yeah,
Were
some
they
of them.
scared? What did they say? Like, I could be out of here.
No, well, I don't think Cornelius, Minister Cornelius, a favorite because he was trying to get people to freedom.
Yes.
And what I do know is that Delana also found a letter once they got there. Cornelius's older brother, Alan Reaves, sent a letter back to his parents. I'll say maybe about a couple of years later. It's on her letter, but I don't have the dates. I didn't bring that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was such a kind of a famous letter that Marverne Starr put it in their newspaper, and that's how she was able to find it. But in that letter, Alan was saying how wonderful it was for them to have the freedom and the liberties, that the soil was good for growing, and he was encouraging his parents and his siblings and his uncles, Moses and Dan, to come as well. But there were some people who were originally going, but I think they backed out. But that's to be expected.
I get it, right? Because you're talking, 300 years later, and my goodness, like I know here. And the last time our people got on a boat to go a long way, it didn't work out too well. I don't mean to laugh. I'm not trying, but I'm just saying facts are the facts. But it's interesting that and we did not talk about this. I just want to know in your opinion. Do you think that there are any there's still African Americans in Liberia that are from?
I'm glad you asked that question because I really do think that there's some of Poo Too's descendants that are still in Grand Bassa County, Liberia. And how this came about, I'm not exactly sure. But what I do know is that our family members were able to connect with 3, and I'm sure there are more, but there were 3 that relocated back to the States. And one of them, Delana and I was keeping in touch with because she was trying to do her family history.
Right.
But see, she was stopped. She didn't know any further. All of those just knew that was their patriarch was an old man, C.B. Reaves. We were able to tell her that their old man, C.B. Reaves, and our minister Cornelius B. Reaves was the same man. Wow. And we were able to tell her that his parents were Celia and Zed Reaves, and that Celia's father was Poo Too Gooshular. So we were able to finish their story that they had no idea existed. And so that was a real honor for us to be able to let her know that their story didn't stop at their old man, C.B. Reaves. Wow. We took them all the way back to Poo Too Gooshular.
Wow, that is incredible. That is incredible. So he was here, and now all this is happening because Emancipation Proclamation was signed. And one of the good things that you've pointed out is that while we're celebrating Juneteenth, and the people in Texas had just found out that slavery was ended, we knew in Mullins, people knew that slavery was over. And we have evidence of that.
And the reason is because in Grateful Memories of the book, Grateful Memories of James Robert Reaves and Sarah McMillan Reaves, they had a paragraph on page 16 saying that an old former slave named Old Uncle Patu, that he was in that household. Well, that story is interesting because he was there in the household of Elizabeth Williamson McMillan because her husband had died in the war. At the age of 41. They had 7 young children, and he was helping her shell corn night after night. Uh, and he had to dig this big hole up under her kitchen floor because they thought General Sherman was coming through Marion County. And they wanted to put the corn in, and they wanted to try to hide some of her valuables. And they finished all of that, smoothed out the dirt and everything. But then they later learned that General Sherman had turned toward Columbia and went on to burn Columbia on February 17th, 1865. So by that time, Poo Too was like 84, 85 years old. And there he was in her household. And from that point, we just don't have any supporting document to know when he actually died. And I'm hoping that he is either in the Reaves Cemetery on Old State Road or hopefully Norton. But we don't know. We just don't know.
And Norton is actually, that's the one that's actually the colored cemetery,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because for my research, if you go down to the Marion County archives, the deed says colored cemetery. It was deeded colored cemetery in the 70s. So let's talk about, for those that may not understand, because you're a historian, so you just whip off General Sherman. So General Sherman, so the phrase 40 acres and a mule is because he explain to the people what that was all about.
Well, see,
General Sherman.
Growing up, I just heard it myself. I don't have all the details. What I do know is that we didn't get it.
We didn't get it.
We didn't get it.
But he was going through, and it was so interesting because he was Emancipation Proclamation was signed. The Civil War was still raging. People were still getting killed. They was fighting like crazy. But he's like, look, enslaved Africans are free. So not only are you free, I'm going to give you land. So he was going in, and in some cases, he actually moved the enslaved people into the house. But hey, you know what happened? These are laws, right? That's what I'm saying, y'all. We got to stay up on it. So he moved the enslaved people into the house, and then Civil War ended, and then our president, Abraham Lincoln, was killed 6 days later. And then the president became Andrew Johnson, who was not an abolitionist. So he rolled back a lot of those things that Abraham Lincoln and General Sherman had did. And it was interesting, and because the people that moved into the house, their land was given back to them. So you went from being a slaver to not having anything to what happened. They gave them their land back. Right. So this is after Abraham Lincoln was dead, they gave them their land back, and then they gave them their land back, and then they gave them reparations for losing their slaves.
Wow.
Right. There is a podcast that Tremaine Lee did. It's so awesome. And this podcast talks about the reparations that were paid to white folks.
Oh, wow.
And his podcast talks about a person of an African that got reparations because he purchased his family.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So when some Africans were able to get their freedom, and when they got their freedom, some of them were able to make their own money, and he was able to make his own money, and then he was able to buy freedom of his wife and his wife's family.
Okay. Wonderful.
So then when they were getting reparations, he got them.
Great.
He didn't get the same amount as them because it went in front of a tribunal.
Okay.
But still,
and
that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. We could talk about reparations. But reparations were paid. They were paid to white slave owners. And they got their land back. Wow. And then we continued to work the land, which I want to believe, that he was, old Poo Too was still working for them. Slavery was over, but he was still here. He didn't realize, and there's no way he could have, that General Sherman, the 40 acres and a mule guy, and the mule is a huge podcast. I'm gonna send it to you. I'll drop the pot. Tremaine Lee. Heather, I know you. I'll post it on my Facebook page, but it is so cool. I'll post that podcast.
Great.
But still, think about this. So here you are. Here's Poo Too digging a hole to bury her belongings.
Yeah.
And check this out. If he didn't do it and General Sherman got there, he would have gave them to him.
Possibly.
You know?
Possibly, yeah.
But he got, like you said, General Sherman got called up to Columbia. So
Yeah,
it never happened. But
Mhm.
but he was sitting there like on the cusp of history.
Yeah.
With
was.
freedom just like right there.
Mhm.
You know, and I have to say it, you know, elections have consequences.
Mhm.
I just got to break this down real quick. And I'm sorry, Miss Page, but I
That's
got
okay.
to.
That's okay.
Because you think about Abraham Lincoln's first vice president was Hannibal Hamlin. He was an abolitionist. And Abraham Lincoln, so that was in 1860. Oh, let me get it right. When did he die? He was murdered in 64. Right? Because that's when the Civil War ended.
Mhm.
So 1863, he's running for re-election. Yes, that is when. So yep. I'm gonna come back to that. So he's running for re-election, and he decides that he wants to bring everybody together. So, because the Civil War is still going on. So Abraham Lincoln picks a new vice president. So Hannibal Hamlin, who was an abolitionist, is no longer his vice president. He brings Andrew Johnson in as his vice president. He gets reelected in March. A month later, the Civil War ends in April. 6 days later, he gets assassinated, dies. Now the new president is Andrew Johnson. So this person who he chose to, to kind of bring everybody together, he's now in charge and starts rolling all this stuff back. Ain't that something?
Yeah.
It sounds like what's going on today with our Voting Rights Act, right? I just had to point that out to you all, which is why you need to vote, right? Which is why we need to make sure that the people who we're electing have our best interests at heart. Because I know there's a lot on Abraham Lincoln, but I believe he had our best interests at heart. He was an ally. He did some very powerful things that helped African Americans. He didn't expect to be killed, and this next guy to come in and change everything. Okay, so anyway. So Cynthia says, is that when we became sharecroppers? Absolutely, yes. Right? So keep in mind that when slavery, and I want to think in Mullins, because they talk about Poo Too as a free man, and that was in 1865, right?
Yes.
That article. So he was a free man. So what happened is that the enslavers they didn't know how to farm their land. They needed resources. Because remember, cotton and tobacco, those things were traded, right? They were traded, they were shipped all over the place. It was a major commodity. And how many enslaved people were on a farm, on the Reaves farm? Do you know?
Well, Charles Reaves' estate inventory had 75.
Matter of fact, I think I got some of that. Let's take a look.
That's the slave schedule. Oh, wow. See, I wasn't even going by that one.
Okay, and pardon me for the way I kind of took these quick pictures. So can you explain to the people what I'm looking at, and then I'll go through different pages?
Before the censuses came out, they had in this particular case, if you had slaves, they had what they call a slave schedule, and they didn't list them by name. They just listed them. I know on some of them, they would indicate if they were idiotic or blind or deaf or things, but it was just a number and a male or female in their age.
Wow.
So you had to kind of figure out who was who based on the age and the group of people. Like if it was a family and you knew that family had so many kids, then you had to just kind of use the slave document to figure out who that person really was. Like in Poo Too's case, we knew that he was going to be the oldest person in Charles Reaves' slave document.
There he is.
And he was 70 in 1850.
Wow. So he was 70 in 1850. And you can see 15 years, 13 years old. I know I'm going too quick online, y'all. 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 7. What was the number again? How many?
Well, on Charles Reaves' estate inventory, when he died in 1861, there were about 75 total.
75 people.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And so if you have a farm and you got 75 workers and then all of a sudden you have 0, you had to do something, and I don't know. They did what they did. Sharecropping was continued slavery, in my opinion. That's Miko Pickett saying. And it's legalized, and it was terrible. Because they never really got value. And matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you stories of for the charity that my husband founded. We were doing. We work with farmers, and we was helping farmers to get their food to market and helping them. We had a deal with the government. We were able to get money and then buy the food for the farmers so they could learn how to get their food to market, right? And so many of them, not so many, 2 or 3 of them, came over to me and started telling me stories about how they would be responsible for, they would have their land, their tobacco that they were farming. And then they had the other person's tobacco that they were also farming. So they was farming their land and somebody else's land, right, as sharecroppers.
Yeah.
And so when they went to the market, the auction, that somebody would whisper in a person's ear, same farmer, same crop, same land, they would get less money.
Oh, wow.
Because of the color of their skin.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And so it's like, and we're talking about not too long ago, after I was already here.
Yeah.
So those are inequities that are deep and rich and steeped in our land. Yeah. And those are conversations that are hard to have. I get it, but it happened. It happened, and it's not right, and those rights have to be fixed. That's a whole nother story. Let's get back to Poo Too. All right, and we're going to wrap this up. Any other questions, let me know, guys. Thank you so much, Cynthia. So I'm on with Marverne Page, and we're talking about Poo Too, the legacy of Poo Too Gooshular. And Marverne Page is a family historian, and I am so grateful for her and also Kathy Vaughn and others, all their cousins. I love, when I'm talking to you, you be funny, you be like, cousin this and cousin that. So these cousins have been just really digging in and researching. So when you think about your great, great, great granddaddy, Poo Too Gooshular, I'm going to give you the final word. I would like for you to tell the people what he means to you.
Oh, wow. In the early years of my researching, I was so possessed. It was almost like a fever because it was almost like I could hear him saying, oh, go this way, go that way. You're hot, but you're cold now. And just finding a letter that was sent by Cousin Norwood and following up with him, and finding out the story that we knew Poo Too. We celebrated Andrew Reaves, but to find, when my Aunt Gwen mentioned the name Poo Too, I had my energy went to a whole nother level. And to find out from Cousin Norwood that he was a prince, that meant the world to me, because the saying that said it's kind of hard to know where you're going if you don't know where you came from. That's right. I want to leave with our whole family. We have someone that we need to live up to. He was, he survived. And because he survived, we got here. And that's saying a lot. We are Gooshular, Reaves Gerald Strong. And we always need, and our future generations need to remember that There's also a little side note that I want to say. I have met cousins that know their family history and they hold it in their head. And I said, did you write it down to pass it on? To this day, still have not written it down to pass it on. And I think that's an injustice to our family members. The same thing with the picture. I never knew how my grandmother looked. And there was one person in the family that had the picture, and somehow one day she allowed us to see it. If there's that one picture, make copies of it so everybody else can see it. It's to me, it's kind of selfish just to hold on to it and then you die, and all of that history is lost.
Wow.
I would not known that we would have come from a royal bloodline had I did not take the initiative, because here in Mullins, the name Poo Too was almost lost to time. And so that's why I'm so grateful. He guided me. It seemed like his spirit was guiding me the whole journey. And in the end, I never would have imagined one article, 2 booklets later, and 5 books later, I made sure that all my family knew his story. They're saturated now. And if you want to show that last booklet, you can, Mayor, the one that I passed on to you.
Let me see. I got it. Oh, and I have the story too about the General Sherman.
Yeah.
Here it is.
And that booklet, if anyone wants a copy of it, there Gail Washington, who used to work at Penn Troy, she's the one who compiled this last booklet. Let me see. Her number is, 843-496-1986. And I'm sure she won't have a problem reproducing it for you for a reasonable fee. But I think you only may have until October to get it. This last booklet was done at our last family reunion, 4th of July in 2025. So, and it tells the story of Poo Too, all the details. So,
love it. And so, if you're interested in this, definitely hit me up on social media, and I will make those connections for you to get you the contacts that she just said.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Page, I thank you so much for your time. I thank you so much for your research and your whole family. I feel like I am Poo Too Gooshular.
Well, all right. That's saying a lot.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So, y'all, man, that was just pretty exciting. And I hope you could see why, whenever I'm around Miss Page, it's just something that fills me. I just feel like I got to learn more and more. And she's always pouring out. And it's not just her. It's also another historian in town, Kathy Bond. Same thing. We'll have just like a regular conversation. It'll turn into something completely different. So I am blessed and grateful to have been able to share Miss Marverne Page. And just like she said, right, that we need to write it down. Poo Too's story lives through our oral history, family research, estate records, and descendants who continue to tell his story today. Well, let's make sure that Poo Too and others like him, we keep their legacy alive. The story of Poo Too's journey reminds us that history is not just about slavery, that it's about identity. He didn't change his name. It's about endurance, and it's about the remarkable determination of a man who never completely lost who he was, and whose legacy still stays alive in Mullins today.
Yeah.
And as long as I am mayor, I am going to make sure that his legacy stays alive and well. So with that, I want to thank you all for watching, and don't forget, tune in next Monday at 7 o'clock, same channel, where we will learn about the remarkable woman, Mrs. Phyllis Jordan. Bye, y'all.